Welcome to Kino Society with Owen Shapiro. Today on Kino Society, we have Amy Stofsky, one of the most sought-after costume designers of the industry who has participated in movies such as Mulholland Drive and Lone Survivor. So before getting deep into your work as a costume designer, I would like to know how you got started in this business. Was being a costume designer a dream of yours since you were a little kid, or this passion was developed over the years?
Well, I was in the fashion industry in New York for many years, and when I came out here, I was fortunate enough to meet a costume designer who took me under her wing. And then step by step by step, here I am. But it was, I was more interested in fashion, but then I kind of liked costumes because it didn't have to be so pristine. People were real. You could have dirt on your shirt. You could have pizza dripping that you ate, like real people. It was easier. It was more interesting and more creative to dress real people than it was to just, set up models. So that was really how I made the transition.
So yeah, you get more variety with film than you would just do making fancy dresses or whatever.
It's a different world, and it's always different because you meet a lot of different people, and you go through so many different stages. It's not just you learn how a set works, how a camera works. You learn how different departments work. You have to work with the producer, with the production designer, with the set designer. It's more fun, and it's more collaborative, and it's more interesting, and since you do different shows, each show is different. You could be on a period show, or you could be on a contemporary show, or cowboys and Indians, or cops, or whatever. So it makes it more fun. Just the change makes it more fun, Owen, doing something different all the time.
Yeah, I see. That makes a lot of sense.
You meet so many different people, and then they're your lifelong friends. They're your family.
Yeah, so the film takes a lot of connections in general that you need to get in the industry.
Well, it takes a long time. It takes a long time. I have an agent. I've had an agent for around, 20-something years. In the beginning of your career, you don't need it, but when you get to a certain point, you need an agent.
So now let's focus on your work. Being a costume designer does sound like a lot of work. Could you describe your typical day as a costume designer goes by when shooting a movie?
Well, we start very early. And usually if there are, the background is usually, unless we're fortunate enough to dress the background, with pre-fits, which isn't always the case because, then you have to pay everybody for pre-fits. You start with dressing the background, and then, that could be 5 people or it could be 500 people. It depends. But even if you have pre-fittings, it's a lot of work. And with a military movie, where each star is and each thing, it's a whole thing. A baseball movie, the cleats, the pants, the jock straps, each thing entails so many pieces. So you have to be very prepared. That's the main thing. So we dress people, and then, it's always nice to go eat. And usually we're just a day or two ahead of the production. So it's basically following a shooting schedule and seeing what what's next, or if there's fittings, or what you have to get, or, now in the time of COVID, everything will be different, of course, but hopefully this will, pass sooner rather than later. But it's a big day. You have fittings, you have shopping, you have, meetings. Yeah, it's a long day. It's a long day.
So you already mentioned that you like the diverse kinds of costumes that you get with film, but do you have any specific kind of garment that you like to design the most?
No, it's always easier to do menswear. So maybe I do prefer menswear because it's easier. Owen, so much depends on your budget. So much depends on your time restraints. A lot of studios don't even have costume departments anymore. It's not like it was in the day. not every studio has, there was a point where there were hat makers, there was this, there was that. It's slimmed down in this millennium. So you just really, you make certain things and you have to buy a lot, you have to buy a lot. But if you're making something, you look for tone, you look for texture, you think about the character. You see, you usually have to age things. So you bring in an ager dyer just so it looks, it doesn't look like a bad theatrical production of some high school. There's like so many different stages, but each one is different. Each show is different. So you have to prepare for it in a different way. Sometimes you have a crew of 10 or 15 and sometimes you have a crew of 5. Each gig is different, which again is the diversity that I like. It's really the diversity that I like. And you have to really, you have to study history and you have to know about fabrics. You have to know how to get things done. It's a juggling act.
So designing for the characters only based on your criteria or the director of the movie is the one who chooses how to dress them?
Well, you have to start, you start with a template of sorts. You have your ideas and then things have to get approved by, the director. And of course the actor has a lot of input now, a tremendous amount of input. But usually an actor, when they come to a costume fitting, it's like if they put on the costume, it's like they find themselves. They find who their character is. So you study the actor, with their sizes, what they're doing, if there's action, if there's not action, if they're shot, if you need squibs, if you need multiples. It just really depends. But, you're the first person that an actor meets when they come to a show, because the first thing they do is get fit. So, it changes a lot too. I mean, it's not always a home run. Sometimes, an actor could have, 30, 40 changes in a show. So you might not get them all. You do it, well, on TV, it's episodic, so you can't dress an entire season in a costume fitting. But, on a movie, depending on what it was, sometimes you can. It just depends, but there's usually, there's ensemble cast, there's day players, you try to work it out with the production designer and with the director. You try to work out your colors. It's really collaborative.
So how do you manage to match the clothing of a character with its personality, though? How does that process go about?
Well, it's primarily based on what they're doing in the show as opposed to their personality, but let's say if there's an older man, let's say, you sort of think of when he might have bought the clothing that you're putting him in. A shirt could be 25 years old, so maybe a button is popping because he's a little chubbier than he was. So you do that with the clothing. You just try to make it real, like how it would look if a real character came in, like what they're doing. Are they robbing a bank? So then you wouldn't put him in bright colors. You'd put him in something more subdued. Is it a love scene? You'd put him in something sexier. Is it an old guy? Is it an old lady? Is she Russian? Is she wearing a thing on her head? You know what I mean? You just try to find the key piece that'll pop the character so that they're memorable. Because if you're doing something with so many people, like how do you even remember who anybody is after a while? You have to have something that differentiates them. Maybe a prop would be a cigar, and for costumes, maybe it would be a pork pie hat, or maybe it would be, some kind of scarf, or, it could be a hero jacket, a hero belt. It could be, it could be anything that you want to, or that the director, what they want to see. It's input on all, if they're going to do a shot on somebody's shoes, if they're getting out of the car, pop the shoes, make them red. It's kind of like that, but you share ideas to see what an actor would be comfortable in. If they don't like, tight jeans, you're not going to put them in tight jeans. If they don't like a khaki, you're not going to put them in that. Sometimes their comfort level is almost more important, that because if they're not comfortable, your life isn't good. If their shoes aren't comfortable, your life isn't good. If they're climbing a mountain and their boots, if it's smart to give them their boots first so that they break them in so that they're used to standing in them all day. Because, an average day could be 16 hours. And to be in something uncomfortable for 16 hours, you want to shoot yourself. So it's all part of the gig. It's like if I was dressing you, Owen, I'm like, okay, what does this guy do? What would he be comfortable in? What would look best on him? What color are his eyes? What tone is his skin? That's how we do it. We look at the big picture and then we anticipate what your needs might be. He gets cold quick. Let's have a down jacket for him. He gets hot. Let's have multiples in case he sweats. You try to think of, all the variables so that when you're, standing in the middle of a mountain, somebody isn't not enjoying what they're doing. They're thinking about their shoes hurting rather than their character.
So how accommodating do actors tend to be in terms of costume design?
Most actors really like their fittings because, like I said, it's the first place they go. So it's the first thing. It gives them a visual idea, more often than not. Usually an actor leaves a fitting and it's like, thank you so much. I know where to go now. This gives me an idea. I once got in trouble with a producer, and it was so mind-boggling to me because actors were asking me, I had just started the show and they were like, Amy, where am I from? What did I do? And I'm like, well, in the script, it says that you were, in the military at one point. I said, so maybe let's make you favor olive, like you're used to olive as a color. That's what you've been wearing for 4 years. And maybe that's your color. Anyway, I went to the showrunner and I said, these actors are asking me like what their background is, what they did. And he's like, what do you need to know that for? You just get the clothes. And I was really dumbfounded. And my jaw dropped because I said, we try to think of, where they're from, what they do, where they went, where they come, and like it just didn't make any sense to him. Where that's what we do. That's the first thing we do. Where did you come? Are you a musician? Is he, would I give him a leather jacket? Is he an old Russian? Will I give him a leather jacket? Is he, you try to think of each, like where they're from, what they did. And at the time, I was just like so taken aback, my jaw dropped because that's what we do. And that's what makes it fun for me, to give the background story or to put myself in their shoes. Like, what would I do if I was doing that? How would I get out of the car?
Yeah, that makes definitely a lot of sense. I don't know why the actor would be so confused as to why you'd be asking him those questions. Oh, producer.
Yeah, Owen, because some people, some producers really like the fact that, you're thinking like that. You're thinking of the big picture. How could you not? You're telling a story and it's visual. It's visual and that's what makes it so impactful, when you see something as opposed to hearing it. It doesn't always, the visual, the image that you see is.
Oh, yeah, of course. The visuals are half the part of the movie.
Captures you and stays with you. It's all the movie. Well, the story, of course, but, what you see in the storytelling is what you remember, you'll remember lines from The Godfather.
So I know that your expertise is on costume design and construction, script interpretation, color usage, textile structure, distinguishing character asset, and research. Could you briefly walk us through what each of these terms refer to?
Well, research is research. You research, you research everything just so you have an idea of, where the person was from, what elements of their space or their socioeconomic group, what they do for a living, where they grew up. So, it gives you that idea. Fabrics, it's like, when you kind of know how to make a garment, you could choose what fabric it is. What's the lining of a jacket? If you don't put a lining in, your arms will get caught. If you don't, it's basically just understanding construction. Like if you know how things fit.
Oh yeah, costume design, construction, script interpretation, color usage, textile structure, distinguishing character assets.
It's really everything. It's really everything we've spoken about. Like you take all of this into consideration, or what colors look good on somebody, or is it winter? Is it summer? If it's winter, I should give it texture. does he look better in earth tones? Should I get fabric that are more earth tones? Would he look better in like black and charcoal? It's just really being able to look at somebody and to think on your feet. And really, you got to think on your feet a lot. You got to go into action mode. It's a lot of steps. And also costumes is a lot of physical work. It's heavy. Clothing is heavy. We have, 40-foot trailers. We have 52-foot trailers. We could have two 52-foot trailers, one with the principal clothes and one with the extras clothes. Like there's so many clothes. And whatever you need, you'll get that 36 short. And who's a 36 short? It's so, you need a lot of stuff to keep the customer satisfied. Like I said, when people design movies, they look for texture really in everything, even in like wallpaper, because there's depth to it. And then you have to think of the lighting too. Like what will, like I can't put somebody in a pink suit if the couch is pink. And that's happened to me where it's like suddenly they decided to make the couch pink and it's like, oh my God, who has a pink couch? And we put him in a pink jacket, so you really have to coordinate things in advance. You got to think of everything. And I think a lot about fabric basically because, I like rich fabrics. I like things that move. Like it's nice to see rayon. It moves as opposed to stiff cotton. It doesn't. You like to see the flow of a garment. A lot of times you're doing winter and it's not like a structured coat moves, but, so like that's where you want to see the colors and the texture. And, it's all about everything happens so quickly. So it's like that first impression that you're going to get is what's going to stay. It's going to be like, oh yeah, that jacket was really nice. It had some, I don't know, it had some rust and green in it. I remember that. It's just trying to find that piece or that memory for whomever's looking at it. And it's always about the director too, because you might think something is, fantastic. You have to get things approved now. You have to go through an approval stage, in this age of, Zoom conversations and, everything is instant. We need to take, fitting pictures and then they go to the masses. It's challenging because everybody, gets dressed, but it doesn't mean that everybody can dress a character. So you're up against that too, where, but no one would ever question a cameraman because people don't know how to use a camera, but they know how to put on a pair of pants. So that's what happens with us, Owen. We're visual storytellers and we try to find pieces and items that stand out or that give you a memory. And it's really the same on every show. You go through the same routine. The difference is the subject matter. But the process is always the same. The research, the shopping, the fitting, the dyeing, the aging, the tailor, it's like that process is always the same. When I did that, Lone Survivor movie, we had to have 38 uniforms for Mark Wahlberg. And it was the different stages of his character. And they were cookie cutter because in a camouflage outfit, all the camouflage had a match. And we don't make that camouflage anymore in the United States. So at Western Costume, they were kind enough to find it for us in the Dominican Republic. So then we had to bring in old camouflage from the Dominican Republic to make American uniforms. And because of everything his character goes through, he needed 38 costumes, for the different aspects of everything he went through.
And I have not seen that movie yet, but I have heard that it was definitely I think I heard it was a good movie. Lone Survivor, right?
It was a great movie. A hard movie. What those guys, war is war. I mean, what these guys go through is, you thinking in this day and age, we'd find a better way than to blow each other up.
It's definitely a more complicated question than it seems on the outside, that war. But what I'm particularly interested in personally is you've actually worked on one of my all-time favorite movies, Mulholland Drive. So what was it like on that set in particular?
Well, David's fun. David's an interesting director. I've worked on a couple of his projects. And, he makes things very interesting and it's very spur of the moment. And he'll be like, do you have a Louis XIV dress? It's like, why would I have a Louis XIV dress? It's a contemporary movie. But I ran out and got a Louis XIV dress. With David, you can't be prepared enough. But it's always a fun set. It's always a very alive set. And he makes up a lot of things as he goes. Mulholland Drive started off as a TV show. It was going to be a TV series. And then it progressed into a movie. It was a huge movie for Naomi Watts. It was really the beginning of her career here in America. It's been interesting to watch her become a superstar. But any movie that you're doing with David Lynch is really, it's fascinating. The process is fascinating. There's always really good coffee too. The man likes his coffee. I did the Twin Peaks movie too. Fire Walk with Me, and I've worked on a couple of David shows. He's funny, really talented, smart, interesting, a fascinating personality. He's a combination of Jimmy Stewart and Diane Arbus, I always say. The boy next door and the horror story.
It's definitely very, very interesting for me to hear, especially since I'm a pretty big fan of David Lynch.
Yeah, he's terrific. He's terrific, and his longevity says everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, David's been around, God, he's got to be around almost 35, 40 years. I mean, that's a big deal. Yeah, he's made his mark. He's a legend.
I mean, he did, I think Eraserhead was his first movie back in 1970, mid-early 70s even. So, yeah, that was definitely quite a while ago.
Yeah, before you were born.
Way before I was born. Over 30 years before I was born. Moving on to another field of your work, you actually specialize in designing for series and TV, right?
Yeah, I do.
So you've won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Costuming for a miniseries or special series, which is very impressive. So how is designing for TV and series different from designing for movies?
You have much more time with a movie. With TV, an average season. Well, now, first of all, now there's so much competition. You have all the cable stations, you have all the streaming stations, but what always stays the same is that you're basically doing a movie a week. So you're shooting, you're also prepping, and you're wrapping. So you're basically doing 3 separate things at the same time. And, nothing changes. I mean, actors still need to be, everything needs to be done. But you got to move faster. I like it because I like to move. Well, I do primarily TV now, and so does everybody else. TV is the new medium. Especially this year. I hope everybody survives because this year is such a hit. I mean, it is such a hit. But TV is, it's fast. Like I said, you're doing a movie a week. You really got to get things done. And so much of the time they don't cast an actor until the night before. And so much of the time you're waiting to get an actor's sizes. Sometimes you just run out. Sometimes I just run out with a suitcase and just guess everybody's sizes and throw it in like a maniac because it's already, 8:00 at night and everything's going to close in an hour and you have nothing. It requires you to just really anticipate. Sometimes you get lucky and sometimes, you don't.
So going back to when you were not a successful costume designer, what were some of the movies that inspired you to pursue a career in this industry?
Well, I loved, my favorite movies were like West Side Story. I mean, it's like when I grew up, everything was about the musical. It's like I'm a New Yorker. We used to go to plays, so it's like when I would see, even something like The King and I, it was my dream to do something like that. Of course, I never have. But movies are so different now. I like action movies. I like cop dramas. I mean, even something like Serpico at the time was, and of course The Godfather. I mean, it made everybody's. I loved Annie Hall. I loved the way she looked. I loved the way she dressed.
So now that you've built a steady career in the film industry as a costume designer, what's next for you? Do you have any projects coming up?
Yes, I'm doing a Netflix series in Pittsburgh starting in January.
Nice. Any information on that one?
Well, it's called The Chair, and Amanda Peet wrote it. She's an actress that I worked with a couple of months ago on a series called Dirty John, the Betty Broderick story. So Amanda wrote it. Sandra Oh is going to be in it. A couple of other people. Takes place on a college campus. It's contemporary. It's a dramedy. I like dramedy. It's fun. Yeah, so that's something to look forward to. In fact, I hired some people today for it. Yeah, I'm excited about it. It'll be nice to be on the East Coast. Not that Pittsburgh is near New York, but being in New York or just being on the other side of the country is close. So I'm happy about that. It's been a long stretch. Everybody's been having a really hard time this year.
Finally, where can my listeners find and connect with you?
Where can they connect with me? Well, on my website, amystofsky.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Amy.
Thank you, Donald. Bye-bye.
That's all for today. Don't forget you can subscribe to Kino Society on iTunes and Spotify.